Good. First poem is from the book Written in Vain. I actually wrote this in rehab, thinking about my mother. It's called Long Division. Now that we are thousands of miles apart, I can see the hurt in your eyes. Hear for the first time the cracking falsetto in your voice as you climb a scale to cry directly at me, as if the weight of a black hole could squeeze through your tears and bury me in the gravity of guilt. Now I feel it. After light years of accrued momentum, full Mach force in the chest. So my diaphragm can't muster an apology. My lungs choke on the fluidity of all this sap, this viscous, oozing melodrama we've unspooled from a cat's cradle who's not took half a lifetime to decode. Now I understand your frustration. Cannot comprehend your patience. Am only starting to glean the depth of your love. Can only hope I sink to its bottom. And why was I so guilty? This is a new poem called Epidemic Scrapbook. I basically cut it in half to kind of fit it in tonight, but you'll get the idea. It's going to take 15 minutes. I'm thinking of the fools we were, the obstinate masks we wore of jesters and liars, and the self-flagellating, unrepentant reptile brains we bore. How we fought ourselves and each other and could never get ahead. How some of us were left behind. I'm thinking of Seth, who was too tragically hip, too smart, and too tortured to do himself any favors. He wrote prize-winning stories, but left his own unfinished. Died by a syringe so loaded it should have exploded in his hands. Rumor is he slipped away with only half the barrel shot. Of Danny the drummer, who shot the whole 12-gauge shotgun, shot off his whole head in a closet in Portland, Oregon, where his father found him the next day. Dan and his drumsticks, his sleeve tattoos, one arm blue for angels, the other red as Satan's kiss. Dan and his damn drinking, his depression and love sickness, and the box cutter carved cross he sliced into the wall at the band house in Reseda, whose mania made him a beast on the double bass, heavy on the toms and a blur at the cymbals. Of all that violence he punched into song and the sudden pall he never heard, a silence he might have enjoyed. Of Alicia in prison on charges of conspiring to distribute narcotics. Of riding with her every day, every single day, to cop dope in the projects, at trap houses, shitty apartments, gas stations, Walmart, street corners, driving through state of emergency blizzards, driving in the dead of night and birth of day, driving on the highway with my arm in her lap, her hands steady, shimmying a spike into place beneath my skin, mainlining nectar straight into my sweet tooth, then licking my wounds like a mother, a tender pressured tissue pressed against the blood. How gently she corrected our course when my free hand fell off the wheel. We never even swerved. How I begged her to cooperate with the cops, but she knew it was too late. Besides, she said, going to jail is the best way to get clean. Of Jamie and her garret apartment with cater-cornered box fans and the nightstand aside her king-size bed, where we used to crush perks into chunks and shuck them wholesale through a cut-and-tube pen tube. Thinking of her 3 little boys, how she had them all by 25 before she realized she'd always been a lesbian. How 2 of them lived in a repurposed, unventilated closet in the attic, and we couldn't get high until 7 o'clock when she'd shut them in for bedtime and latch lock their door from the outside to make sure they'd never walk in and see Mommy sniffing pain pills, because Mommy loved sniffing pain pills. Jamie and her bloody noses, so frequent in the night she had to sleep naked to save money on clothes. But for her sheets and pillowcases, there was never any hiding. Jamie and the bullet hole in her septum, the scraps of necrotic cartilage she sometimes coughed up, whose only cure was to plug it with more powder, keep ripping rails until her nostrils stopped up. When she ran out of Percocet and Vicodin, she'd snort acetaminophen, 500 milligrams of Tylenol at a time, but she hardly ever ran out of Percocet and Vicodin. Of Nate, so seemingly put together, so wise and inviting, so warm and caring, he was an addict to admire, a mentor and counselor, an open and shut soul in a revolving door world. Nate, so quick to crack jokes you'd never suppose he'd spent days, weeks, months summoning the spirit to slump off into suicide. His friends and former clients couldn't believe it. But why not? You can help hundreds of hungry souls scrounge up the food they need to survive until you've given away your last can of love soup and are left alone, starving to death in an empty kitchen. Of Beth, trapped in a cold-fish, codependent relationship with a man who only loves the way she lets him use her. Beth, in all her yellowing prettiness, cooking down blue 30 milli Roxys in a sugar spoon, sopping the cocktail with a shredded cigarette filter and drawing it up in a blunt-tipped point. Beth with the scarred arms and the sexless blue eyes to match her medication. Of Janelle down the road, who was always an hour late, and how I left her one night at a dealer's house because she was taking too long. Of her best friend, Jessie, who looked angry every time I saw her, then died one day from an overdose, and I hope she's found peace. Of Greg and his Gibson SG and Stratocaster and his Les Paul. We called him Sly Hands to honor his finger-picking finesse, his fretboard dexterity, but Greg had other plans for his hands. First, he sold another dead man's amps and PA system, pawned his best guitars for a few bundles that didn't last the weekend. Next came the vanishing act, like the shepherd's hook yanked him straight from Harlem's Apollo and LA's Viper Room stages. Greg gone AWOL, his long brown rocker's mop hacked to a buzz cut, his tattered body supposedly withering in Covina, where he may or may not be busking on San Fernando street corners, plucking at rusty strings and too embarrassed to nod at Samaritans good enough to toss a few coins in his styrofoam cup. They found him one night looking like Lane Staley, flat as a flapjack on a would-be deathbed, with pus weeping from an abscess in his groin. 3 days later, he checked out of detox, AMA as usual, drifted back into obscurity, determined this time to fade entirely to black. Of Jared and his carefully crafted cries for help, his elaborate pleas for handouts when he couldn't find a pocket to pick or a purse to snatch, or a personal identification number for someone's bank card. Of how he had his whole paycheck out on loan, had to cough up hundreds of dollars to dealers all across the county, would go home broke and never share his junk. How he never told the truth until it was too late, and the truth was no longer a thing to set him free. He tried buying his fixes with poetry. Never mind that his poetry needed fixing. Jared with his long, meandering, philosophic digressions, as if he thought he could think his way out of hell or speak recovery into existence. Jared who never did shit except wonder why nothing had changed. I am thinking of these people, their faces and voices, their bodies and clothes, how so many of us threw away the best years of our lives, watched them turn bad in a long, slow nod. thinking of the tears their loved ones shed, the wrath of desperation, the self-fulfilling prophecy that each planter must reap what is sown. How we are but several of millions of such seeds scattered by this storm, this Sturm und Drang they have classified as epidemic. I am thinking of souls lost, talents wasted, hopes and dreams cut with fentanyl, the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, reduced to a body count, 60,000 Americans in 2016 alone. I am thinking of the cost of absolution, the debt of gratitude I may never be able to repay. I am thinking of how thankful I am to be alive and well and free, when the road to salvation can still lead to hell, when a person's fate can be sealed in a glassine baggie, and the difference between life and death can be measured in micrograms. Thank you. On a positive note, this is a poem called The Most Beautiful Thing in the World. Time groans as a woman births a child. Vibrant life force pushed forth from vaginal lips. The soft womb's mouth, the hungriest thing alive, with two pulses, two simultaneous vessels in harmony, throbbing with carbon, oxygen, the clock catatonic, but the spark of ceaseless music burns like jazz, a quartet playing kerosene blues long into the night, and the midwife says, "Bless us, there will be no mourning." Time exhales its final chord like an effigy of death, and the trumpeter kisses two fingers in a peace sign, tips his cap to the daddy and the doctor just as the wick is enveloped by wax and the low vanilla candlelight bows out. Then a nurse tugs a rope that splits apart the shades, and God pitches a sunny dawn down Broadway, snaps a picture sure to last the child's whole life, an image whose every viewing is a birthday wish, a scene seen through a double plate window's sanitized lens, and in it a room nearly torched black by prayer, scrubbed to white gold by sweet deliverance. Thank you.